I came home from the hospital after my third chemo treatment and found my driveway blocked by my neighbor's truck. I knocked, barely standing. He opened the door and said, "Not my fault you didn't plan ahead." I slept in my car that night, but I didn't say a word because what I mailed the next morning would make him regret ever speaking to me that way. I live in a small town just outside Tulsa, Oklahoma. Quiet place, mostly older folks, families. I've been in the same house for nearly 12 years. It's not big, just 2 bedrooms, a narrow driveway, and a porch with paint peeling off the railings. I always kept it clean, kept to myself. Last fall, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I found the lump myself. I thought it was nothing. I waited too long. The chemo hit hard. I lost my hair fast. The nausea wouldn't stop. Some days I couldn't even keep down water. I was doing it all alone. My ex left after 10 years of marriage, said he couldn't watch me waste away. My only brother's across the country with his own problems. I had some friends at work, but once I stopped showing up, the tech slowed, then stopped. So, I drove myself to chemo. Every time. I'd rest in the parking lot afterward before trying to make it home. That day was the 3rd round. I remember the nurse looking at me and saying, "You shouldn't be alone right now." I didn't answer. I just got in my car, turned the radio off, and started driving. 30 minutes back. No traffic. Just the soft hum of the tires. But when I pulled up to my house, I couldn't even get in the driveway. My neighbor, Travis, had parked his massive white Silverado right across it, diagonally. Not even trying to fit on his own property. I stopped and just stared for a minute. My arms were trembling. My vision was a little blurry. I hadn't eaten since the morning before. I rolled down the window. Looked for him outside. Nothing. So I dragged myself out of the car and walked next door. He answered the door with a beer already open, music loud in the background. He looked at me like I'd woken him up from a nap. "Hey," I said, barely louder than a whisper. "Can you move your truck?" I just got back from the hospital. He looked over my shoulder at the street, then back at me. "Not my fault you didn't plan ahead," he said. Then he shut the door. That was it.
No, sorry.
"No, let me help." Just turned around and locked the door in my face. I stood there for a minute. I could feel my knees giving out. I walked back to my car, sat down, and just cried. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet tears while I stared at the steering wheel. I didn't have the strength to fight him. I didn't have the strength to walk around to the back door either. So, I put the seat back and covered myself with the emergency blanket I kept in the trunk. And I slept there. I woke up with pain in my neck, soaked in sweat, and a bottle of water on the floor that had rolled out of reach. It was still early. The street was empty. That morning, I didn't yell. I didn't knock again. I got out of the car, took photos from every angle, timestamped them with my phone. I even recorded a video where I pointed at the street signs, my mailbox, and his truck. Then I got to work. I made calls to the local code enforcement office. I filed a formal complaint with the HOA. I spent hours combing through the city's public records and found out that Travis didn't even own the house. He was renting from a man in Texas. So I found that guy's address in the public assessor's database, printed out all the evidence, and mailed it directly to him with a short letter. But the thing I knew would do it, the thing I'd been noticing for months, was that Travis was running a business from his backyard. Unlicensed. Probably illegal. I'd seen him with engines pulled apart on the grass, customers pulling up and dropping off vehicles, paint fumes drifting over the fence. I'd even written down dates when I saw it happening. So I compiled it. Every detail. Every name I overheard. Every plate I could photograph. Then I sent that report to the city zoning office and environmental safety board. I waited. About 3 weeks later, I saw a city vehicle parked in front of his house. A woman with a badge and clipboard walked around the yard, took pictures, then knocked on his door. I watched from my window.
He didn't look so smug then.
The Silverado disappeared from my driveway that day. A week after that, he started packing. A trailer showed up. The constant sound of power tools stopped. No more customers. No more dogs barking all night. Then one morning, I saw a sign stuck in his yard, for rent.
He was gone in a week.
After Travis left, things were quiet for the first time in months. I could sleep without hearing engines revving or dogs barking past midnight. I felt like I could breathe again. But then, 2 weeks later, I got a letter. It was from the property management company now handling the house next door. They said there had been a complaint filed against me for harassment of a tenant and interference with private property. I sat at my kitchen table, holding the letter with my fingers shaking. It made no sense. I hadn't touched his property. I hadn't said a word to him after that night. I'd gone through all the proper channels. I called the number listed. The woman on the line was polite but firm. "We were told you took photos without consent and followed the tenant's customers," she said. I laughed. Out loud. I was in chemo. I barely had the strength to get up, let alone follow anyone. She paused. "Is that documented?" That's when I realized I'd have to prove everything. That I wasn't just a bitter neighbor. That I hadn't made it all up. That I wasn't some angry woman looking to pick a fight. I spent the next day putting together a binder. Photos, city reports, medical records, a copy of the diagnosis, even a letter from my nurse. I mailed it certified. Never heard back. But about a month later, I found something on my lawn. A dead rat. No note.
No explanación.
A few days after that, someone keyed the side of my car. Deep, ugly lines right across the driver's door. I didn't have cameras back then. I didn't know if it was connected to Travis. But the timing was hard to ignore. I went to the police. Filed a report. But without proof, they couldn't do much. Still, I didn't stop. I went back to the HOA. Shared everything that had happened. Told them I didn't feel safe. Asked for permission to install a camera system on my house, even though it would face part of the shared lawn. They approved it. A week later, I put in 3 motion-activated cameras. One on the porch, one by the driveway, one facing the street. That's when I caught her. Travis's girlfriend, one of the women who used to hang around when he lived there, was parking a few houses down, walking over at night and tossing trash into my yard. Fast food bags, beer bottles, even used tissues. I sent the footage to the HOA and the property manager. She never came back after that. Things stayed calm after that. For a while. I was still going through chemo. Still driving myself to the hospital, still coming home to an empty house. But I'd gotten a little tougher. I was learning to expect less from people. Then I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper.
No greeting.
Just one sentence. "You messed with the wrong man." I stood there in my kitchen, holding it, feeling something cold settle in my chest. I didn't recognize the handwriting. Didn't know if it was Travis, or someone connected to him, or some coward who'd heard the gossip and decided to stir things up. I didn't call the police that time. I just walked outside, turned my cameras toward the mailbox, and added one more on the side of the house. But it didn't stop there. A week later, I woke up to find my front porch covered in motor oil. Thick, black, sticky. Someone had poured it all over the steps, down the walkway. Like a warning. I called the cops then. Showed them the footage. But whoever did it had stayed out of view. Angled just beyond the camera line. They filed a report. Told me to be careful. That's all they could do. I hired a guy to clean it. Paid out of pocket. Just another hit. But it got me thinking. I went back through my footage. Frame by frame. Looked for anyone circling the block. Anyone parked too long. That's when I noticed something. An old brown SUV that had driven by 4 times in 2 hours. Always slowing near my house. I hadn't noticed it before. I ran the plates. I had a friend at City Hall. I won't say her name. Turns out the SUV belonged to Travis's cousin. A guy who'd been in trouble before. DUI, resisting arrest, that kind of thing. Lived 2 towns over. I printed everything. Filed a restraining order. Sent copies to the HOA, the property manager, and the police. And then I did one last thing. I mailed a certified letter.
No threats. No emotion.
Just a copy of the restraining order, the surveillance logs, and a note that said, "Next time, it won't be the HOA. It'll be a lawyer." I never heard from them again after that. I still park in the same spot, still walk the same path to my front door. The cameras are still up. The oil stains never fully came out of the porch wood. I haven't heard a word from Travis or anyone tied to him in months, but every time I walk outside, I still look both ways. Not because I'm scared anymore, but because some part of me still expects the worst. And the truth is, I don't think that part of me is ever going to fully go away.